I want you to see how we go through the process of dealing with objects. Objects or images or things that I'm going to take out of one element and put it in the other. I might be making multiple objects to put in one background, or a montage of tools or food or shoes or whatever we're dealing with to make this work. Now, to get an object, I'm in Google right now. I'm going to make the Google go to images, and in the images I'm going to write the name pear, P-E-A-R, and I'm going to search the images, and here I am in pear. Normally I go over here in the all sizes, I go at least the large, maybe even the extra large images, so I get the best image possible to take over and put into Photoshop. I see though here there's a pair that I'd like to use for this purpose of separating the object from its background. And I like big numbers on these things, 800 by 553. 41's a little low, but it's going to work out all right for what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click on this picture, and I get here this website where it came from. Now I'm going to see the full size here. Click on that, and there's the full size. I want that image to be maybe with or without a shadow. Let's take the shadow with it, and we'll process that. To get this image now from the internet onto my Photoshop page, I'm going to hold down the Control key and click on the object, and a little box comes up. I'm going to say Save Image As, and it's going to ask me what I want to save it as, pear. I'm going to save it to the desktop, and I just hit Save, and it is now over here on the desktop. I can find the desktop. There it is, pear. Now I'm going to take the pear and put it down here in Photoshop and turn it on. Photoshop is already open, and it's going to open up in Photoshop. I have to process this picture to be the best picture I can use. I'm going to use my marquee tool to come over here and cut away a lot of the white. I'm just drawing a marquee around the shadow, the pear, the stem, and then I'm going to go to image and say crop, and it's going to crop inside those marching ants, so I've got less white there. Now I'm going to say to image size. I want to get this a workable size, and I'm going to make it the height is 4 inches. And the width came 495. Well, let's see, the height is, let's make the height 4 inches, and the width came to 3 something. The resolution is pretty high, but I'm going to go to 400. And then you see these locked together in chain here. That means whatever ratio you put in the height, it's going to do the same ratio as this size here was to the width. Now I've got that taken care of, so then I'm going to hit OK. And my pear got a little bigger because I've added a lot more gumps to it by making it 400 DPI. Here in my navigator, I'm going to back down on a little bit until I can see the area. It's still called background, and it's locked here, so I'm going to click on background and rename it pear, P-E-A-R, and it's now a pear. It's unlocked. I can work it. I'm going to put a new layer down here, this new little layer box right there, button. There's layer 1. I'm going to put that underneath the pear, and I've got a couple of oranges over here, orange colors, in my foreground and background. I'm going to take that foreground color, Option Delete, and put it in this layer here. Now I can even take the layer, just call it the back, short for background, I guess. Now, here's the part I want you to learn, is to cut out this pear. It's a simple object to cut out, and you're going to see other cutouts that I've already done for you in the rest of this assignment, but I want you to see how this is done. I'm going to come over here and make sure you get the Polygonal Lasso tool. There's 3 of them in there. It's a sort of square lasso tool. Now that Polygonal Lasso tool, make sure you select the pear so it's blued out at level. And it's a straight line drawing tool, sort of click and release, click and release, click and release. I'm going to go around the outside of this pear to include that given shadow that came with it, and I'm going around it, and I'm gonna, when I get back to where I started, see the little circle shows up, say I've back to where I started. Now I've just put a marquee around the positive part and this white of that pair. I'm going to go to select and say inverse, and what it does, it jumps and takes all the outside space here, and I'm going to hit delete key, and that deletes that white. Now I've taken away the majority of white. I need to come in, I'm going to click away the little marching ants. I need to get the magnifying tool and get really close in here so I can really see what I'm doing. Also check up here when you go back to your cutting tool that your feather is 1 pixel. Sometimes it'll come in there and it'll be a 0 or some other number. You need to blue that 0 out and make it 1. Every time you use the Polygonal Lasso cutting tool, it needs to be 1. That gives it a slightly fuzzy edge. If it's 0, the edge is too sharp, too clean, and Photoshop doesn't work that way. Okay, now you click out in the orange and you come to the stem and click. And it's just a series of straight lines. If you have a curve, just bend your curve in there and come around, and you start the process of cutting out this pear. And you go around the pear. Don't take the whole thing all at once, just take bites. Not literally the pear, but bites. And then you hold your finger on the space bar and you get the hand tool, and you can move it over and get over here and get the other side of the bottom part of the stem. And if you have detail, you have to go in and out, and this may take you a while. There's no magic way to cut the background away from the foreground. You know, there's other tools that say you just hit this and easily will make the line happen. They don't. The pixels get a little unseparated. It doesn't know on close colors, you know, brown and red, whether to take one or the other. So you really got to get in here and just learn to do the careful cutting around the object itself. And always take bites. And I like to always have the start of my line out there so that if it accidentally closes on itself, like right now, it could close on itself like bing, and if it goes that way, it does that. You're outside there, and you can delete that and then start down the other side. Sometimes it will just happen because you shake your mouse a little suddenly, and all of a sudden it thinks it's done, and it closes on itself. So don't try to take the whole bite all at once, and or go all the way around, and take it in bites, and try to have your outside line be somewhere that if it's shut up, it would go to the line and not through any of the pear or anything else you're cutting up here. Now as I go around, I'm looking at the edge, and it's pear orange or pink against the white. I'm going to take my line just inside the color of the pear so I don't get any white, unnecessary white edges here as I come around the back of the pear here. Now I'm going to stop at the shadow, and the reason I do that is I'm going to show you what I'm clicking back up to find where I started, and then I hit the delete key, and away it goes. If I let's go down the other side and get that. Again, start on the outside and just wander through here. Now you might not want to go as fast as I am at the moment. I'm trying to hurry along, and I've done this before, so I know how it works. So I take a bite of that and delete it, and then space bar down and move it around. You need to be fairly close so that you can see the little nicks and crannies and crooks if you're going to go inside it, or if there are those there. As you bring your cursor down and just sort of tap the bottom of the frame, you can see it will move itself up a bit more. And now I'm back down to that shadow. Now I stopped the shadow for a reason. I want to show you what I'm going to do with that. Delete key, and there we've got that. I'm going to back up on the navigator so I can see the whole pair again. Now the shadow is a separate event, and I'm going to make another. Back here is my orange, and then I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to call that layer shadow. And what I'm going to do on the shadow is right now take my Polygonal Lasso tool. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to come around and just trace that shadow that has been cast by when the photograph was originally taken. And I'm going around the shadow what the edge I can see, and then I'm going to just come back around through here and join it back up again. Now, that shadow, I'm going to get a black color here on the background, and I'm going to put that background color with the Command key and the Delete key on that shadow area here. Bing. Now, if I turn off the pair, you can see the shadow is there. It's black, but I'm going to eventually, and I'll turn it into a transparent so that there's a slight shadow there. But for right now, I just need the shape. Now, I'm going back to the pair, turn it back on, and get a little closer. And now I'm going to cut off, since I have the shadow now trapped or cut out, as it were, I don't have to worry about making any more effort with that shadow. I'm going to continue on with cutting away everything that's not the pair. And that includes the white and the shadow that was part of the original picture. So when I come out here now, I've finished that. I'm going to back down and come across the bottom and get myself out to the end line and then delete that. And so now you're up to see the shadow. When I back off here, I've got three elements. I've got the pair by itself with no background, the shadow by itself with no background, and then this orange background is just there to show the difference between the pair and whatever. If I turn the background off, you can see, wow, we're looking against that black and gray Photoshop element that says there's nothing there. But I like to see what I'm looking at, and so that orange, not necessarily am I going to leave the orange as the background, but for now it's working. I got to save this now. File, Save As, and it's pair. It's a Photoshop document. It's going to the desktop, and so it's the original one I started with, but now it has no white backdrop. And I hit Save, and OK that, and now it's saved as pearl.psd. Now, if I have another image that I want to put the pearl in, let's go to a file and say, well, I can just do it here. If I back off, I've got the pair by itself, and I can put it someplace. I can deal with it. I can put more objects together. But the first thing I want you to realize is how to cut that out, how to process it. Now, let's just put it someplace. I've got a picture here that I'm going to open, this Kansas storm. And before I do that, though, I'm going to take my the magic wand tool, and I'm going to click. Now be sure to get the magic wand tool, not the other one that's in this toolbox, the quick selection tool. Get the magic wand tool, and I'm activating the pearl layer, and I'm going to click in the negative space. You see I picked up all the negative space, not the shadow, just the negative space. And now I'm going to say select inverse, so it picks up the positive space. I can't click on the pair and get the positive space to start with because there's different colors in here and they would take a while to all come together. So I click the negative and get the negative, then I reverse it on the selection and inverse it, and I get the positive. Command C copies that onto the clipboard. Here's this picture I'm going to put it on. I'm going to open this Kansas storm, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but it needs to have a layer. I'm going to put a new layer up in here and call that layer pair. P-E-A-R. And then I'm going to hit Command V to paste the pair in, and there it is. It came without the background. It's a single object, and it might be a little large, so I can go to my tool here, turn on the Show Transform Controls, and you see the bounding box there. Hold the Shift key down so it reduces proportionately and make it a little smaller. And then I can take that and place it somewhere in this picture. Right, probably I'll just set it there and on the bottom of the picture. The drum major is marching through the rainstorm somewhere out in the plains. Now this has nothing to do with anything else, the pair. I'm just using this to say I can plunk that down there. The shadow, it doesn't look like I'm going to need it very much because there's not much room to put the shadow there. But I could bring the shadow over. For example, if I take this background off, I could go back to my pair, this time select the shadow and take my magic wand tool and click on the shadow. Now it's all black, so I get that all at once. Command C, I copy it. I go back to my Kansas storm, and right under pair, I selected this one because when I hit this button and a new one comes in, it will come in right above the blued out one. So there's the new layer, and I'm calling that new layer shadow. And now I'm going to say Command V and paste it in there. Now it tends to come to the middle of the page, and so I'm going to bring this down and place it under the shadow, or place the shadow under the original pair. Black is a little strong, so I'm going to come up to the opacity, still on the shadow layer, come up to the opacity and bring it down to, you know, some degree, maybe like 80%. And if I had another color here, let's see, I'm going to, where Kansas is, I'm going to put another layer. Now it's above Kansas, and I'm going to put that orange color on that layer, which is going to take the whole picture up. Option, delete, that's the foreground color. Now you can see the shadow. If I go back to the shadow and say, it should be a little less intense than that. Let's bring it down a little bit. Then the shadow is not as black and as strong, and it's just there doing its thing. So we have a shadow. Now, I'm going to turn the shadow off, and I'm going to turn back on the, turn off this orange and put on the Kansas, and talk about this for a minute. You see I brought the pair over, and the pair is cut out. There's no background, and I can bring it in and set it in place. Now I'm going to turn that off because it's not really the flavor of this picture. This picture has objects in it. It has the drum major that is, I just turned him off. There he is. Now I've cut him out of a scene from a football game, and I put him in place. He's an object in place on this picture that is the storm clouds over the Midwest someplace. That picture is the whole picture's there. Now, follow the leader. I've got that in red lettering, and I put that in there to match the red lettering of his coat, and that works pretty well. But I have made another situation where I took a copy of the clouds and made it a separate layer. Like, let's see, thick and thin is just black, and that's just layers there. But to follow the leader, here it is, and on this layer. Now it has a drop shadow effect, and it has a bevel and emboss effect that comes from this filter down in here. There's the drop shadow, and there's the bevel and emboss. When I take off the bevel and emboss, what I've done is I've made a copy of the clouds. And if I turn this off, you can see there's the copy of the clouds. See, follow the leader. I made a complete copy of the clouds there, and then process that. Now let me show you how that worked. I took my red follow the leader. Now I'm on that layer right now, and I made that with the type tool, and it is type. I'm taking my magic wand and I'm clicking on the F, and you see how the marching ants go around the F. Come back to select and say, give me everything that's similar on that layer that's red. There's nothing else on that layer, and so bingo, I get the whole business. I turn off the red follow the leader, and I go then to the Kansas, blew that Kansas out. The marching ants are still there. I hit Command C. I've just taken a picture of the marching ants, and I will put it on another layer. Let's I'll just make another quick layer here to show you what I'm doing. And this layer here, layer 2, is let's just put follow 2, just so you can see what I'm doing. So I've taken a picture of the Kansas thing, and I'm going to go to follow 2 and say Command V and paste it there. If I turn off the Kansas picture, you can see there it is. And if I put the orange up, you can see it better. Now, what I've done though then is I'm going to turn off the 2 and go back to the one I've already worked. Here it is. Now I put the effect of a drop shadow on it. Let's put the color back so you can see it. Here's the drop shadow. See the drop shadow? The clouds are still in place. If it wasn't for the drop shadow, you wouldn't see the letters. And I put on a bevel and emboss, and it's a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a highlight and shadow. So when I put the Kansas picture back in, the clouds are still in the same place, but I put a bevel and I put a shadow on there that made it a little more dramatic. Now, yes, the follow the leader red is that's also usable, but this is a little more subtle. The red's over the shadow, and you can't see the bevel, but you can see the shadow, and that helps it somewhat. But by taking that off and letting the clouds do the work, it's a little more subtle. And then, of course, I've got the follow, whoops, not that one, the through thick and thin, just in black, as a sub-headline. So there's elements now, or objects. The object of the background picture, the drum major strutting his stuff through the field. The follow the leader is lettering that has been processed to be there, then make the marching ants, then cut that out of the cookie cutter like thing, out of the clouds, put them on a different level, give them a couple of effects, the drop shadow and the bevel edge, and then adding the black letters through thick and thin. So this gives me a lot of stuff to deal with here. Now the pair is still there. I can turn it on and off. That's not important now because a pair isn't going to be part of this thing. The pair is showing you how to cut out an object. But I'm going to end this first segment on objects with this picture in view, and of the things that are available to take an image and elements and put them together and make them a little more interesting than it would have been had we not gone through this drill of putting these things together. So this ends the first one on objects. I'm going to show you another one on objects that will show more things cut out and how they're can be put together in a montage of visual information.